everyone, and welcome to another episode of Marketplace Masters, sponsored by Merchant Spring, your go-to platform for agency and vendor analytics. In this podcast, we're going to dive deep into the world of marketplace agencies and service providers, addressing the challenges and opportunities that they face in serving their clients and improving their own financial performance. I'm your host, Paul Sonneveld, and today we're going to pull the curtain on what it takes to run a super vendor account as an agency. Now, by super vendor account, we'll get into this, I mean running a very large Amazon vendor account that is owned by the agency and via which multiple client brands are sold to Amazon consumers. Now, I have invited Louise to join me in this conversation today and share her perspectives on how this actually works and what agencies really should think about. Let me introduce her briefly. Louise is the head of business development of Rosetta Brands, a B2B e-commerce as a service company specializing in Amazon globally, providing a really easy way for businesses to access Amazon vendor benefits and succeed on the world's largest online retailer. Louise has worked at various companies in different roles throughout her career, and she holds a diploma in professional digital marketing from the Chartered Institute of Marketing. With a robust skill set that includes marketing, customer service, event management and social media, teamwork, and more, Louise contributes valuable insights to the industry. Thank you so much for being on the show, Louise. It's great to have you.
Of course, thank you for inviting me.
You are most welcome. Now, before we jump into the questions, and we get the conversation started, I do want to remind all of our viewers that this is actually a live episode. As per usual, we love to take your questions. So, in fact, I've brought my colleague Abby along again to have a good look at that LinkedIn chat and the YouTube chats and see what's going on and make sure that your questions get surfaced right here. So watch out for Abby behind the scenes. Thank you so much, Abby. Appreciate it. Great. All right. I can't wait to get started. Now, let's talk about some definitions here. I mean, even as I was putting this podcast together, I was thinking about what is the right terminology. You know, we've called it like the super Amazon vendor account. I think we can probably, claim some royalties for coining that phrase. Perhaps not. It's not something that's really well understood. So let's move beyond the words and talk about the business model here. So can you start, Louise, by just explaining to the audience, what is a super vendor account and how does it differ from traditional Amazon vendor arrangements?
Yeah, of course. So our vendor account, we service multiple brands under one account. So rather than a traditional vendor account where you've got one brand, how it works is we basically purchase the stock from our clients based on demand from Amazon, and they then ship that stock into an Amazon fulfillment center within the designated shipping window. And we basically service everything from that point. So the only interaction our clients have with Amazon is delivering that stock into an Amazon FC, and we deal with everything else, but for multiple brands. So I think overall we work with over about 300 brands now, so a lot.
Yeah. So let me just get this straight. We're talking Amazon vendor here, but the difference, because we do a lot of talks on Amazon vendor, but what we're talking about here is the vendor account is not owned by the brands themselves. You as an agency own the vendor account and you have for a long time, and you essentially almost act as a distributor where you distribute your clients' brands onto Amazon via that account. Have I got that correct?
Yeah, that's correct. So it's difficult. We're kind of a mixture between a distributor and an agency. Difference is we're not a traditional distributor. Obviously, as a lot of people are probably aware, Amazon are wanting to move away from, I guess, like the traditional distributor warehousing. They want more connection with the actual brands. And so brand registry is really important to us. We require brand registry from all our clients. So obviously then Amazon can then recognize us as the brand, and that's kind of what they're looking for. So that's where it differs from, I guess, other kind of distributors that are more traditional with stock, who kind of a bit more, I guess, random stock into Amazon. It's kind of where it varies a little bit in that aspect.
Yeah, no, I think we have a number of distributors as clients, and they philosophically they feel very different, right? So yes, they buy the stock and they sell it to Amazon, but there seem to be certainly a reluctance to really understand Amazon as a platform. Typically, Amazon is just one channel, particularly like in the electronic, one channel outside a whole range of channels, and it's not really their bread and butter. So that's really interesting. So I also wanted to just clarify one thing. You mentioned that are you actually buying the stock? So it's not a consignment model, you're actually buying the stock from your clients. Is that
Yeah,
correct? Is that right?
that's correct. So we buy the stock based on demand from Amazon. So we also help drive up that demand through obviously advertising, optimization, everything like that. But yeah, it's based on demand from Amazon. So we're not going to kind of order a load of stock. We're not holding stock. We're ordering based on what Amazon demand. They then obviously will then sell it to the end consumer on a normal kind of vendor model.
Yeah. Okay. So let's talk about like the benefits of this model, right? So when you're talking to brands, why? I mean, obviously the obvious question is why not open up their own Amazon vendor account? Although that's harder to do these days, particularly if you're a smaller brand. So I sort of understand a little bit of that, but still, why not, right? Or I'm sure a lot of our audience will be saying, well, why don't you just open up an Amazon 3P account, right? So how do you see the benefits? How do you pitch it to your prospective clients?
I think vendor, if you can make it work, is a great option, and it is difficult to make it work. Obviously, first you've got to get the account, and they're not as easy to get as they once were. Then obviously making it profitable, and Amazon, they offer a load of different programs that you can be a part of, but if you're setting up a vendor account yourself, you're not necessarily going to get access to all of those. So we have access to those. So as part of our T's and C's, we negotiated Born to Run, Subscribe and Save. We've got ABS, access to the PICS program, the pallet ordering program, and our clients benefit from these. They're not paying any fixed or variable fees as well. We deal with all chargebacks, any ASIN maintenance. You've got access to a full team of experts within onboarding, operations, account management, advertising, graphic design, optimization, finance, kind of, the list goes on. And, a lot of brands that we work with don't necessarily have all that resource that they can actually put into Amazon. They've got so many other channels that they're looking after. And if you're going to do Amazon vendor, you've kind of got to be on it. Amazon are changing things all the time. They don't make it easy. So using us to help support them can make a real big difference and actually help make Amazon profitable. They can forecast better. They're not, like I said, having the variable fees. So they have a fixed fee with us. That's not going to change. There's no surprise costs that are going to come out of nowhere. So just streamlines it.
Yeah. So you operate a sort of a flat fee model as opposed to a percentage of purchase orders, or?
So we work where we purchase the stock from the client. So we make a small margin on each unit, and we just have a management fee, which is a nominal fee every month.
So you sort of put yourself on the hook to drive your own success, because that's going to pay the bills, right? In the end of the day.
Exactly.
Yeah. Look, you made a lot of really good points there. I mean, running an Amazon vendor account can be quite expensive, particularly when you think about paying for AVS, all those programs you mentioned, putting it, getting your finance team to chase all the chargebacks and doing all of that. There are lots of conversations around that in various episodes. So actually what you're saying makes complete sense. There's definitely scale and efficiency in spreading that skill, resource, and cost across multiple brands. Really, that's what we're talking about here. So does it also imply that this model works particularly well for a certain size of brand? So, is there sort of a minimum and a maximum where this business model, this approach really works?
We work with brands of all sizes. We started off kind of the smaller regional brands. That's where we started, and help them put them on a level playing field with some of the bigger brands that they wouldn't necessarily get on kind of other platforms. But we do work with, we can work with more medium to larger brands. We work with a lot of brands that were, had vendor accounts. It wasn't quite working for them, or they don't necessarily have the resource. And And these can be quite large businesses that they want to put resource elsewhere, so they can use that. Any size business can fit into this, which is the beauty of it, I think.
Yeah. No, I think it's I was immediately thinking about, is this about brands that would love to sell on vendor, but it's like actually I got 3 questions this week on LinkedIn, asking me, how do I get an invite to the vendor platform? We know that's pretty hard, and every time I ask our panel of experts, it's really hard to get a straight answer there. I think most of the answer is, unfortunately, it's unless you're a well-recognized brand and Amazon feels they need you, the answer is probably no. Yeah. But you're actually, so it's not just that, but you're actually saying actually there's vendor is becoming harder, and there's a lot of businesses that are saying, well, I've got finite resource, I've got these channels, and don't have the resource to invest. Do you feel it's like a 50-50 balance? What does it sort of look like? I mean, you mentioned 300 brands. That's lots.
Yeah, I'd say it's more the smaller to medium brands, because they're not going to necessarily get access to vendor. It'll take them a lot longer, and they might never get access to it. So we're giving them access to a platform that they might not ever get the chance to be on. But we are seeing an increase recently of the larger brands who are wanting to, who are interested in working with us and coming on board, just because of even, they've got vendor accounts, but they might not have as, profitable T's and C's that they've negotiated with Amazon or those side of things. So it does vary. But yeah, I'd say majority, we have kind of the smaller medium businesses.
Yeah. Okay. And when a brand approaches you and say, Louise, we're tired of running our own vendor account, or we just want someone to do it, want to give it to an expert, what do you look for? I mean, what are your internal criteria to say, actually, this brand would be a great fit, or sorry, maybe come back in 6 months, doesn't feel like a great fit? I mean, what are the sort of criteria that you go through in your mind as you assess prospects here?
Obviously, if you've been on Amazon before, proven volume's great. But we work with a lot of brands who've never been on Amazon before as well. So that's not an issue. It's really the basic thing. So have they got good stock all year round? Do they have a good tight kind of like core range that's available all year round? We don't want to mess too much with Amazon's algorithm by kind of having stock that's kind of in stock, out stock. It's not going to work. Obviously, with vendor, you need to have a kind of minimum RRP. You don't want to be kind of too cheap, because Amazon, it's not going to be profitable for them. So they'll end up pressing it and it just won't work. Advertising budget's huge. It is a pay-to-play platform. If you want to be visible, especially if you're a newer brand, or you're in a competitive category, obviously you want to be visible. I guess other things like brand registry, do they have trademark? Can they give us access to that brand registry? Things as basic as GS1 certificates. Yeah. Do they have great assets? And, can we get those reviews kind of built up as well? So they're the kind of key things that we look for when looking to kind of work with somebody.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. What are the challenges? I mean, so far, this sounds pretty compelling, right? Particularly, I'm thinking about like brands that are growing, they've got multiple things going on. This sounds like a great model, but I'm sure there are challenges and drawbacks. So let's talk a little bit about those. What are the biggest challenges that you faced in the last kind of 2 years or so as you tried this business model on a range of vendors? What are the issues you run into most?
So brand registry has been a big one. Amazon, as I mentioned earlier, doesn't want to work with kind of traditional distributors that aren't linked directly to a brand. So it's really important to have that. So we have that, I'd say, for most of, if not all of our clients that we work with. So we've got that direct link that Amazon want. If you don't have that, Amazon aren't going to recognize you as a seller, and you're just going to run into problems. So that's the key one for us. Launching into Europe as well. So that's something we've done recently. And, it has been a bit more challenging than we initially thought. There's a lot of, obviously, regulations, especially for UK brands getting into Europe. But we've had our vendor manager supporting us on this, and that's had a huge help in kind of getting this as smooth as possible. And we have started to see a lot kind of growth in that area now, and it is picking it up. But that was a big challenge. And then mean, the daily challenges of working with Amazon, you know, we're not immune to them. You know, we have the support, we have the internal team. We're just more equipped to deal with them because all we do is Amazon. We just live and breathe Amazon.
Yeah. Sure. It strikes me that one of the risks in your business model is around the supply chain performance of your clients. Right?
Yeah.
We know Amazon is very strict about on-time delivery, shortages, you know, and they love to charge fees, right, when things go wrong. And, you know, obviously that can hurt you quite significantly. What level of kind of due diligence do you do around, you know, prospects' supply chain performance and how good they are in terms of delivering into Amazon's network?
Yeah, so we try and educate all our clients from the start. So we kind of set, these are the expectations of us and of Amazon and kind of what you need to do to work with them. We have our ops team, we'll have a call with them. We get samples sent just to make sure everything's kind of compliant and kind of what Amazon are looking for. And, you know, we will still get charged back. You know, nothing's ever perfect, but we do everything we can on our side to make that as less of a problem as possible. And we flag it with a client. If there's a repeat kind of issue, it's something we would flag with them, and then we would then offer support, like, okay, how can we help you kind of resolve this? So we're kind of getting those issues, because obviously we don't want to affect our account health as well. So I think education at the start of the journey with us is really important, rather than kind of wait until they're on board and then surprising them. It's kind of from the start, kind of letting them know and communicating basically.
And I'm just so curious, and you don't have to answer this one because it's more of a commercially sensitive question, but when you do get hit by chargebacks and things that are essentially, you know, because in this model you carry a lot of risk around the profitability and the charges, because, you know, Amazon just deals with you, like, you know, who you ultimately get your stock from. They care probably a little bit, but the box stops with you. So when you do get hit with fees or claims or shortages, do you absorb that completely yourself, or do you sort of, you know, share that cost with the specific brands? I mean, what's your approach there?
Yeah, so we absorb a lot of the chargeback costs. It's one of our, I guess, like USPs of working with us. Obviously, we work very closely with our clients to ensure we don't get them. There's certain ones, I think it's like late delivery, which, you know, things that can be avoided, that we might pass those charges back, but all other chargebacks we absorb. It's one of our points.
Yeah, that's great. It just means the pressure is on to do a fantastic job, right? It's that sounds like a win-win, or, you know, definitely a win-win situation for the brands. That's great. So how do you? There's a couple of questions asking about brand registry, by the way. We'll get onto that in a sec, but I do wanted to just get into, how do you measure the performance of those brands, right? I'm sure your clients like to look at purchase orders. You probably want to look at sell-through and you know, making sure inventory doesn't go too high inside Amazon. I mean, what's success look like, and what are the metrics that you use in your business?
Yeah, so our kind of like key metrics that we look at for the success of like our account as a whole is like, obviously, Amazon net PPM, subscribe and save metrics, operational performance, and then kind of like the advertising metrics, so TACOS, ROAS, those kind of elements are the main ones that we kind of look at as a team.
Makes sense. Great. Well, let me throw a few questions in. I've got a couple more questions of my own, but I want to make sure we don't keep our audience waiting. So I'm going to start with, let me quickly, here we go, from Rock. Thank you so much for your question. Very practical. This question is, how do you protect your and your brand's business with Amazon's brand registry? Specifically, what brand protection services do you offer related to ABR? I must admit, I don't know what ABR stands for. I hope you do. Otherwise, we can just answer the first part of the question.
Yeah, no, of course. So, so how do you check your brands business with Amazon? So you need to obviously link your trademark to Amazon, and then as part of that, Amazon then recognizes you as the brand. So if you've got a lot of third-party sellers, or you see somebody is unauthorized and is listing your products and they're damaging your brand, they've got incorrect imagery, or it's incorrect, then you can then flag that with Amazon and kind of like either get the listing taken down, report it, or if you make any changes on a listing with a lot of third-party sellers, Amazon should then take your changes as the changes, so it would update the listing. And I guess in regards to vendor, it helps with kind of born to run. So if you've registered the brand, Amazon are more likely to accept that born to run if you are registered as the brand.
That makes sense. By the way, Rock has just clarified that stands for Amazon Brand Registry, ABR, which we should have known. I'm actually doing this in Australia. It is late in the evening here, and I probably should have had a coffee before doing that. It's the pressure of doing a live show. Awesome. Great question here from someone else on LinkedIn. Louise, how do you protect your brands from movement in your consolidated Amazon terms if you were to lose a significant client from your portfolio? I guess it's about diversification, but let's say one of your 300 brands was Nike, right? And Amazon cares a lot about Nike. You've managed to negotiate very favorable terms on the basis of that brand that you can now leverage across your portfolio. Is there any risk around the commercials there when you lose those cornerstone brands that Amazon comes back knocking on your door saying all those discounts, the great rate you have on AVS, we're going to have to withdraw some of that? Have you ever been in that situation, or actually now you're at 300, you're so diversified, it's really not an issue?
Been in that situation because we don't have any brands that we just solely rely on for the majority of our business. We've got some really big key clients that we work with that obviously are great for us, and obviously they're doing great themselves, but we don't really have one that we're solely reliant on. I think if we were, obviously that would be quite a nerve-wracking place to be in, because you are reliant on that, and we don't ever want to be just reliant on one key client. So we've not been in that situation, but I'm not sure what would happen if we were. I'm not sure.
It's the fact that you mentioned 300 brands, diversification is critical there. I was going to ask, and actually Rock asked the same question. Do you specialize in certain product categories? You mentioned subscribe and save, which automatically led me to think, maybe you favor kind of repeat purchase categories. Obviously, you're much more stable demand patterns and those sorts of things.
Yeah.
What does your portfolio look like in terms of category exposure?
So we're predominantly within the FMCG space, mainly food and drink. That's where we started. We also work in pet care, health and beauty, household. But, our model works mainly well for FMCG, but we have had interest from other categories that don't necessarily fit into that. But yeah, that's our main kind of bread and butter, if you will.
Yeah, cool. Thank you for clarifying that. Hey, we haven't spoken much about advertising, all right? How does the whole advertising work within this model, right? Obviously, there's some additional costs there. You're running the advertising campaigns and portfolios. Are you doing that together with your brands, or is this completely at your discretion and you're all focused on driving profitable sales, or having a really good customer acquisition cost ratio versus the lifetime value in terms of some of those grocery categories? How do you think about advertising and the approach there?
We strongly recommend advertising to all our clients. A lot of the time it's kind of mandatory to work with us, because we know that you should see growth with that, especially if you're reinvesting into your advertising as you grow. Obviously, we manage that on one advertising platform, and our clients are the ones that kind of contribute towards that ad spend. So they'll put that in, we'll spend it. They then get a monthly report of details of how they spent their metrics, KPIs that they're looking for. But we manage it all.
Okay, so you sort of jointly set a marketing budget with your client. Yeah. That sounds reasonable, because you're still building their brand, their exposure. They're going to get a halo effect outside of Amazon because of that as well. So Oh, that makes sense. Thanks for clarifying that.
Of course.
I'd love to hear maybe, I don't know, I don't want to put you on the spot here, Louise, but are there any case studies that you'd love to share with the audience? Maybe of a small brand that's come to you and they've grown, sort of before and after type metrics, anything that comes to mind.
I've got, we've worked with a lot of brands that, came to us initially before they'd done anything with Amazon. And then, we showed them how great it can be. They then left to try it themselves. And normally within a year, less than a year, they normally come back, which is great. But two, I think, good examples of brands that we've helped is we worked with a brand who wasn't established at all, had never been on Amazon, and they saw an uplift in their sales about 1,700% from year 1 to year 2. So we normally find the biggest increase is year 1 to year 2. And they're expected to do, I think, about a further 80% this year. And then we had a more established brand who's been on Amazon for a while. They're more known in the market. They've got stock in like retail, supermarkets.
Yep. And
they started with us in 2023, and they're expecting about a 50% uplift from year 1 to year 2. So it just shows the power. If you're consistent with your fulfillment, you're doing your advertising, if our clients are doing the things we need them to do, and then we do what we need to do, there is, it can be a real success.
And do you find in year 1, where do the gains usually come from? Is it supply chain? Is it content optimization? Is it just advertising improvements? I think particularly to those that have had a go at running their own vendor account before, right?
Yeah.
Where do you see those quick wins, or maybe it's not as quick as we'd like, but those first year wins? It's almost like a lot of times it can be sort of fixing the basics, right? That gives you some of that. Where do you see those?
I think Amazon is definitely a journey. It's not a get rich quick overnight kind of situation. It's having great product pages, fully optimized titles, great imagery. It is advertising. It's fulfilling orders, even if they are slightly small. I think sometimes, vendor, you can get those really nice, big, juicy orders, but sometimes it will start off on the smaller side. And it's being consistent with fulfillment and consistent with advertising. It's not kind of switching it on, switching it off. And that's where we start to see the most success. It's being patient as well. It can take a bit of time. Some brands we switch on and the sales just start straight away and it's great. Other brands, it can take a little bit of time just to get more into the Amazon ecosystem, but it's kind of just working with the algorithm and us. And, you'll start to see that growth.
Yeah. Oh, fantastic. That makes sense. Let me, we're almost out of time. I just want to sort of go up a few levels and sort of ask some of those big picture questions. The first one is more of an internal question, which is, in terms of your business, are you 100% focused on this particular business model, or do you run a more of a traditional, it sounds really old school, but traditional in the terms of like full service Amazon agency where you manage other accounts? Like, do you have a part of that business as well? And do you mix them together, or are they run as completely separate, distinct businesses?
So our main business is through our big, obviously, vendor account that we service, but we do some agency, more traditional agency work as well. It's the same team that does it. So the team that is working on our vendor account is also the one that works on our more agency client. And I think that's really great because we've got more of an understanding of what it takes to run a vendor account, because we literally do it every day. So it's kind of like that added extra bit that is quite nice for our clients on the agency side. Yeah.
And this is my big picture question, because I think particularly if there's agency out there thinking about, oh, maybe I should be thinking about this or not. How do you see this model evolve? And the reason I'm asking that is, I think a year ago, 16 months ago, Amazon came out very clearly. Look, we don't want to deal with distributors anymore. We want to go with brands direct, right? Partway to, you could interpret that statement and go, oh, that goes directly against your business model, right? But then based on what you're saying, actually, maybe it doesn't, right? Because maybe some brands, actually, Amazon doesn't want to deal with those sort of, smaller brands if they don't want to invest a resource, and actually dealing with someone like yourself that has brand registry, has a professionalism, is like the perfect solution for Amazon, right? So I could argue this both ways, right? Where do you see this business model evolve? You think there'll be more providers in 2-3 years time, or like
the model works really well. It's favorable to Amazon because we're working with them. We're giving them what they want. We've got the brand registry that helps. They're getting the service that they want as well. Obviously, with our expertise, we work with Amazon on this. I think in the next kind of 5 to 10 years, a big thing is going to be more like AI and automations. I think it's doing everything manually is just not going to kind of continue. I think Amazon are working more towards that themselves. And I think as a whole kind of like industry within Amazon, I think that's going to be more of the future. It's kind of, automations, AI. And I think that'll be the same for just general vendor accounts. But I think especially with a kind of super vendor account, when you're running multiple brands, I think that's going to be kind of the next step. We've already started with some automations and using AI more, but I think that's just going to continue as the years go on.
Fantastic. Let me throw in one last question. It's a very practical question from the audience, and then we'll wrap up. It's another one from Rock. He's asking, in this business model, do you mix different brands within one vendor code, or you set up different vendor codes under the one vendor account?
We have different vendor codes for different categories. So we'll have one for food and drink, we'll have one for health and beauty, pet care, etc. But we will mix multiple brands within that one vendor of those vendor codes.
Perfect. Very clear answer. Okay, fantastic. I really enjoyed this conversation, Louise. I've learned a lot. It's a really interesting part of the Amazon ecosystem, I must admit. And I'm sure there's viewers out there that have found this equally interesting and would love to get in touch with you. How do they get hold of you? What's the best way?
So either through LinkedIn, or if you wanted to email me directly, my email address is just louise@rosettabrands.com. But yeah, alternatively, LinkedIn's great.
I think we've just got your email address here up as well. So people can email you there, louise@rosettabrands.com. That's fantastic. Well, Louise, I want to thank you sincerely for coming on the show. You've been very generous in lifting the lid and how you at Rosetta Brands actually run this operation, this very interesting business model. So I appreciate your transparency, your honesty, the learnings, what works, and just sharing a very compelling case with us. So yeah, thank you so much for on the show. And I'd love to check in with you in a couple of months to see how things are going and how this particular model is evolving, because I'm sure it will.
Amazing. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Take care.
Bye.
All right, everyone. That is it for today's episode. I hope you enjoy this. It's quite a different topic to what we usually cover, but certainly what we see here at Merchant Spring, more and more of our agency clients are venturing into this model, especially in Europe. So super, super interesting. Now, of course, if you are looking to streamline your analytics, whether it be agency analytics or vendor analytics or merchant of record analytics, to suit the same sort of business model that Louise is talking about, make sure to get in touch with me here at Merchant Spring. DM me on LinkedIn or drop me a note, and I'll be very happy to share with you how Merchant Spring can help you. Last, I am all ears about what you want us to cover next. If you have a topic in mind or a burning question, please let me know, and I'll do my best to find the relevant expert to tackle it together. And on that note, actually, next week, if I can bring it up, we have Chris from e-commerce intelligence. I spoke to him last year about hybrid selling. He laid out the basics. Next week, we're going to go next level. So how do you operate both a seller and a vendor account together, and how do you go to those next level strategies? So look forward to that session as well. Until next time, please take care, stay safe, and see you soon. Thank you.